You almost finish 28 Angular lectures, and now it's time to become a master in AngularJS. To become a master in AngularJS, I think you need more practice, and I'm going to give some help for that. I'll do some real world applications that uses AngularJS, and you can follow those the lectures and become master in AngularJS. From this lecture, I am going to use Visual Studio as my development tool. Reason for use Visual Studio because I am going to use ASP.NET MVC backend with this AngularJS frontend. And as a first lecture, I am going to develop some user registration system, and users can register into a system and registered users can log into a system. I'm going to create two separate HTML files for a register and the login. First thing is for a register. And the next one will be a login. This one is creating new views. It's actually equal to your normal HTML because this create view, the backend is ASP.NET, that's why ASP.NET MVC, that's why it creates razor view, and there's no difference between your HTML and this razor view. And I already created HTML component for these two files. Now I need to use Angular routing to transfer with these two files with the index.html. The first thing is I need to import that library. I'm going to use Angular route, and I already created Angular app called app29 in the script file. First thing I need to do is inject that Angular root, ng root, and now I'm going to create app.config. I'm going to use root provider. The first screen will be for a register. Template URL for that is /home/register. This URL pattern comes because of this the MVC architecture, and if you are using other backend technologies, this URL pattern will be changed. It will be to direct your HTML file, and the second one will be for a login. Template URL for that is home.login, and I'm going to write default URL, and in that I'm going to redirect default URL to login, right? And I have written this Angular root, and we will check these HTML files, In the HTML file, I need to enter first name, last name, email and the password, and I have a button to submit these details. And yes, I have a path to a login file in the register screen, and I will go to the login screen, and it's having to enter the username as email and the password, and button to submit, and also link for register. Now I want to define the view area to this Angular root. I'll use ngview directive, and we will check Angular root. I have written Angular root register, and I want to use slash here, right? Register will go to the register, and login will go to the login, and default will be a login. And we will run the application and see Angular root is working correctly. Right, it loads the login page, that's the default one, and we will click on register. Yes, it goes to the register form, and we'll click again login. Yes, that means that Angular root is working perfectly. As a first the data save, we will do the data save for this register form, and I have these validation fields, but I didn't do any validation, that's why all the things are coming. We will stop the project and go to register. Right, I have a form area here, and I'm going to use ng model, and I'm going to use user.firstName. I'm going to create a user object using these controllers, using these input controllers, and in here I'll use ng model user.lastName, and this one will be ng model user.email, and this one will be ng model user.password, and I'm going to do the validation here. I'm going to use ng show. My form name is form, yes, it's form, and dot first name dot. The first thing I'm going to check if it is any data entered. For that I need to use dirty, and I need to check if data is entered before the postback, and data mark required. Sorry, it will be error dot required, and the same thing I'm going to use for last name ng show first name. Before do the validation, I need to check if any data is entered from dot last name dot $mark and from dot last name dot error dot and here also ng show from dot dot require, and this one will be checking the email format, ng show form dot email dot error dot email. That will check the format of the email, and this will be required, ng show form dot password dot dit and form dot error dot required. And now I need to handle the disability of the button with the validity of the form. For that I am going to use ng disabled, and condition will be form dot invalid. If form is invalid, this button must be disabled. Right, I have did the validation, and now I am going to create a separate controller to control this register function. I'll go to the script folder and going to create a new JavaScript controller, and this will be a register controller. I'm going to define the controller app dot controller. Controller name is register controller, and function. Inside of the function I'm going to use a scope. Right, I have defined the controller. I'm going to give this controller area in this register HTML file, ng controller, and this will be a register controller. Right, and I need to use a button to submit, and in the button I'm going to use form submit function, ng submit function, ng submit, and function will be I'll give the name as the function as form submit. And when the form submit, I need to pass this use object. Right, I'm going to pass this use object when the form is submit. I'm going to write that function, the scope dot form submit function. I'm going to accept that the passing object from the front end, that's user, and right, I have written the function for a submit. Oops, misspelled, that's form submit. We will copy exact function and paste there. Right, and I'm going to write Angular factory controller, that's actually Angular factory, to handle this data process with backend and controller. I'll add new JavaScript file called user factory. I'm going to write factory here, app.factory. Actual factory is handling all the processes. I'm going to name the factory as register user function, and in this factory I'm going to use HTTP handler and the .q handler, because this factory will be asynchronous. Return function. Right, and from the controller I'm going to use this factory. To use the factory I need to define it in the function, in the controller function, and inside of the submit function I'm going to use that register user, and I'm going to pass this user object, and I'm going to get result as a return. I'm going to equal into this result object, and we'll write the factory now. I'm going to accept use object here, and I'm going to define deferred object. This is q.defer type. Actually this will handle the asynchronous process. And now I'm going to do HTTP post request, and my path will be home/register function, and I'm going to pass some data into the post request, and the backend will accept that as this object as user pass, and I'm going to equal this user as user pass. Actually that's the object that is going to accept. I have defined backend this object name as to accept. Because of that I'm going to equal this user object into US pass. When it pass to the backend it pass as US pass, and if it is success I need to handle some function here. If it is error I need to handle some function here, and I'm going to use this deferred object. Resolve this asynchronous request, and data will be true. I'm going to make if it is this one will be true if there's no any error in the backend fast and it processes successfully. If there's any error I'm going to make data into false, and now I need to promise this return. For that I will use deferred object dot promise. This is how you are going to handle this asynchronous backend request. And now I am going to my controller. Controller is going to accept this processing request. For that I am going to use result, then function, and the output what I am going to return from the factory, and I'm going to use alert success, just pass success, if the data is saved successfully. And I'm going to index.html now, because I need to add this user controller and user factory into my index file. And now we will run the application and see how this one will be response to this user controller and user factory. Right, it loads. We'll go to the register and I'll type Shivanka Chaturanga Shivanka swe@gmail.com, and I'll type password as 123456 and I'll hit register button, and we'll see there's no any response from the backend. I'll open the console and see. Yes, you can see an error. q.differ is not a function. Actually, differ is single f. I have misspelled. And I'll go to the front end again. And I'll enter the data again. I'll put these details and hit the register button, and yes, you can see success message. We will go to the database and see. I'll go to this users database, users table, and yes, you can see data Shivanga Chaturanga and password 123456. Yes, you can see data is saved, and we will display nice animated message replacing this alert. And we will, after saving this data, we will clear these objects. I'm going to app.js, and I think you remember in lecture 28 we did animation in AngularJs. I'm going to copy paste those directives into here. And this is hide me. I'm going to use this hide me in the register.html. Let's hide me, and the variable will be, I'll define some variable here in the register controller. In the default, I'm going to hide that div area, that message div area, and if it is success, this must be true, this must be false. If it is success, I'm going to use this variable is hidden. I'm going to display some message also here. We'll write scope.message. When it restarts, message will be a blank, and I'll say record saved successfully. I'm going to use message in here. We will run this application. We will do full refresh to this application, and we will see. I'll add new details. Eugene Gonzalez, Eugene @gmail.com, and 123456 is the password, and I'll hit register. Yes, you can see this animation comes clearly, and now I'm going to clear this details after it passes successful. I'm going to use user dot first name right and user dot last name right, user dot email and user dot password right, and we will refresh this one again and see after recording successful these fields are clearing. I'll add a new one, Jerome Caf and Jerome at cebc.com, and the password will be 123 and hit register. Yes, these fields are cleared automatically, and yes, record save successfully message come. I think you understood how we are going to do the user registration. And right now we will do for a coding for a login. For that I'll add a new controller for the login. That's called a login controller. App.controller. This will be a login controller, and the function. Here I'm going to use scope, and this time I'm not going to use factory to process this login details. I'm going to use inside of the controller, and scope and HTTP I have used. I'm going to the login.html file. I'm going to give ng controller, and that's login controller. And I'm going to the index.html file now, and I need to add this login controller into index.html file. Right, I'm going to give ng model, that will be user.email, and ng model for a password, that will be user password. Right, and I have a validation, so I'm going to use ng show, that will be form dot email dot, I'm going to check dirty, and form dot email dot error dot required, and the same thing I'm going to use for a password also, and the only change is the name, password, and the password. And this time I'm going to use ng click to handle submit. I'll say the function as login, and I'm going to pass this user object to the function. I'll go to the login controller and scope dot login equal function. I'm going to accept that passing object as user. I'm going to write http dot, this is post I'm going to use for a login, and my path will be home/login function, and I'm pass into the data to backend as US pass variable, and this will be the user object. I am going to pass as US pass, and if it is success, if it sends that request is success, function, I'm going to access output, and in the function it will return true or false this login. For that I'll use if output true, that means login success, and else, that means output false, that means login false. For now I'll use alert false and true. Right, login controller, I'll create ng click login function, and it passes this user object. In the login control I have created HTTP post request, and it passes data to the backend login function, and it returns the output true or false. And we will run the application and see. Right, it loads this login, and I think you remember when I create the user registrations, I have registered the user for shivanka@gmail.com, and my password is 123456. We will hit login and see we get any outputs. Yes, I got true. And we will edit this email as Shivanka, removing SWE, and hit login. Yes, you can see false. We will go to the database and see. Yes, we have Shivanka SWE@gmail.com and password as 123456. And yes, Shivanka SWE@gmail.com, password as 123456. Yes, it's true. And if I remove some password characters, yes, it's false. That means my login controller is perfect, and we will add that animation into this login controller, that custom animation directive that's called hide me, and we will create some variable here, scope that is equal to true, and if it is success, I'm going to make this as false, and I'm going to create some variable also to display the message. Scope.message, default it's blank, and I need to show this here, login successful, and here login failed. And I'm going to add these things. This is hidden, and the message will be message. We will save this thing, and we'll refresh the file and enter the details. enter the correct details first. Right, I'll hit login. Yes, you can see login successful, that message animated. And I'll remove some words of the password and hit login. Yes, you can see login failed, that animation is comes. I think now you understood about how we are going to do logins and registrations, and I'll explain briefly. I have created Angular routing to make this login file and register file separately, and this will make code more clear. And I have created Angular directive, the custom directive called hide me, and same custom directive I have used in register HTML and also in the login HTML, and you understood about how to use that the same directives in two files. And we created a factory object, and in the next lesson you will get clear understanding about why we create this factory, Angular factory. And I think we finished this lecture less than 40 minutes time. That means you can create that full login, the front end, less than 40 minutes time. You can add a lot of things into this application, like lot of validations and lot of outputs according to the return type, and I just did some basics. And we will continue this lesson with the registered user add, update, delete thing in the next lesson.